All right. Well, hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. It is just a thrill to be here with all of you. My name is Tiffany Mulle, and I'm the president of End Citizens United. And we are a people-powered organization that's really dedicated to rooting out corruption and money in politics and expanding and protecting the freedom to vote. And when I say people powered, we have about 4 million members across the country, and they come from all walks of life. They're firefighters, retired teachers, educators, but they all share one common belief, which is that our government should work for us, the people, not the lobbyist, not the corporate special interest, and surely not the big billionaires. And, as we gather here tonight, just a day after whatever that was last night, that State of the Union, I think a lot of Americans are really trying to figure out who is our government working on behalf of. And that's really the struggle we are in right now. Is our government going to work on behalf of just a few who hold all the power, or is it going to work on behalf of all of us? And it's clear that Republicans have made their choice. They're siding with the big money donors who bankrolled their campaigns. They're siding with corporate special interests who are driving up your costs. And they're siding with the big billionaires and the lobbyists. And President Trump made it really clear last night that he is not concerned at all about working to support you. He didn't talk about issues like affordability and rising healthcare costs. He instead spent that 90 minutes or what felt like an eternity to put on a show and to berate Democrats. But we're here tonight because we know something really powerful. And we know that when we all stand together, we can change the broken system, that the people are more powerful than the money. And that's why who we send to Washington matters so, so much. Because when we elect leaders who answer to the people, then we actually get policies that reflect that. And we can finally make progress on all of our priorities. And so tonight we have an incredible lineup for you. You'll be hearing directly from an incredible set of leaders who understand that the unprecedented corruption that we are facing and money in our politics is the reason why families are going through a cost of living crisis, why powerful special interests get special access while the people get drowned out, and why Washington is failing to deliver for the people. And so we are honored to be joined by Senator Elizabeth Warren, Congressman Chris Deluzio, Congressman Greg Casar, and Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan tonight. And these are leaders who are in this fight with us every single day, taking on the big money in politics and pushing for real accountability. All right, so late last year, we rolled out our Unrig Washington campaign because let's be honest, I think Washington needs a lot of unrigging. And the point of the campaign is to be able to challenge candidates and elected officials to put the people, not the donors, first. And it's really made up of three simple ideas. First, ban congressional stock trading, because if you are a member of Congress, you should not be using your position of power and your insider information to line your own pocket. Number two, get dark money out of politics. We deserve to know where that money is coming from to influence our elections. And billionaires and corporations shouldn't be able to spend billions of dollars to first buy elections and then policy outcomes. And number three, refuse to take corporate PAC money. Look, corporations already have a big enough seat at the table. Voters deserve to know that their elected officials are working on their behalf and not cashing in checks. These are pretty common sense, right? I think that this should be like the minimum that we expect from our elected officials. And we are so excited because we already have 140 candidates who have signed on to this commitment, including everyone you're going to hear from tonight. And along those lines, I want to take just a little bit of a brief segue to tell you about some really exciting news that we rolled out earlier today. This morning, in Citizens United announced that we have officially endorsed Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan for U.S. Senate in Minnesota. She is so clear about who she is working on and whose side she is working on. She has taken on the powerful special interest and won. She stands up for working families and she's delivered real results. And we are just so thrilled to have her here with us tonight. And Lieutenant Governor Flanagan, it's such an honor to endorse you and to be in this fight with you. All right, so enough for me. You'll get to hear more from me, but let's get into this discussion. First of all, if you have a question throughout this, please put it in the chat, and we have people monitoring it, and we will get to those questions. And I want to make sure our team collects all of the information and gets back to you. And we are going to turn it over first to the amazing Senator Elizabeth Warren from the great state of Massachusetts. And we all know she needs no introduction, but there has been no bigger leader taking on the fight to root out corruption in Washington than Senator Warren. Her voice, her advocacy, it's been so instrumental in exposing how corporations and special interests corrupt our democracy and our economy. And we all know that she has a plan to help us get rid of this corruption. So, Senator, we're so grateful to have you here with us tonight.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Tiffany. And thank you to ECU for having us and bringing us all together and helping us organize because we are so much stronger together. I'm so glad to be here tonight with my friends, and they are my friends, Peggy Flanagan and Greg Casar and Chris Deluzio. I'm glad to be here with fellow fighters in this battle. I was thinking about as I was about to sit down for this call, there's a lot to be cynical about right now. And there's a lot to feel down about. We are seeing the worst of big money, for example, in Illinois right now. It truly is enough to make you gag. But one thing that gives me hope is seeing leaders and seeing candidates come together to reject big money in politics. It's just like Tiffany said, 140 candidates have joined ECU's Unrigged program, and they have committed to an anti-corruption agenda. I just want to underscore for everyone here, it takes some courage to step up and say, I may be heading into a tough campaign. I may have money spent against me, but I'm making a commitment that I'm not going to take this corporate PAC money. I'm going to stay away from that. And I am going to run a people-powered campaign. That kind of courage, that kind of determination, that's what we need. Not people who talk the talk or people who generally want to talk about, oh, yeah, I don't like money in politics, but who continue to take it. It's people who really step up and fight back. And that's what gives us momentum. That's the power of ECU because it's not one off here and one off there. It's that we come together and we are stronger together because we make this point as a group. We say we are determined to change Washington. So I am in this fight all the way, but I'm also here tonight to say how important it is to have Chris, to have Greg win their reelections, and how important it is to get Peggy into the United States Senate. This is truly how we make change. We elect the people who have the courage, who have the backbone, who have the stamina, who have the determination to stand up to big money, to come to Washington, and to make the changes we need to make. So again, thank you very much for having us here, Tiffany. I'm going to pass the baton, and I'm looking forward to getting to the questions.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Senator Warren.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to go to Congressman Chris Deluzio from the great state of Pennsylvania. Congressman, thanks for being with us tonight.
Yeah, Tiffany, thank you. I'm really honored to be sandwiched between some great anti-corruption fighters, Senator Warren and Congressman Casar, who I know in Washington, and then to be joined by Lieutenant Governor Flanagan. It's awesome. So ECU, great for putting us together here. Looking forward to the questions. Yeah, I want to talk about the link between this anti-corruption fight that we're all in and the way it has, frankly, killed the American dream for so many. I'm a millennial, right? Whatever that makes me in the world. You're my age or younger, as Greg Casar is, a little younger. Good for him. We are the first Americans in a long time, our generations and younger, who don't expect to be better off than their parents. That is a fundamental failure of the American dream. And I think the corruption that we are all fighting is a big part of why that has happened in this country. The consolidated corporate power that shows up, right, in different ways in different parts of our great country. You see it in my community. We're still fighting 3 years plus on to pass railway safety legislation, and yet the corporate power of the railroads and others keeps fighting that back. Those fights show up all over the place. Senator Warren and I and others took on a fight that we're going to go back next year on to fight against the defense contractors that block right to repair. Again, we could have all these examples, but the fundamental problem is the corruption that we see of concentrated corporate power. And look, to fight that corruption, this ECU unrig Washington agenda, I think, gets right at the heart of it. Things like congressional stock trading that I think we have to ban right now. We should have banned a long time ago. It goes to and breeds distrust. It goes to the lack of public trust when you see this corruption. And then the money in politics, the corporate PAC money that runs through our politics that makes sure that candidates do their bidding instead of the bidding of the people. So I'm proud to be standing with so many here and beyond who have the courage to say no to that corporate PAC money, who have the courage to want to take action to get super PACs out of our election. So I commend and frankly tip my hat and salute you, Tiffany, and ECU for putting this group together to get so many to join this fight against corruption. And to me, it goes to the heart of how we restore the American dream that we have to restore people in this country. So thank you. Honored to be part of this group tonight.
Well, we are truly honored to have you, Congressman, and honored to be in this fight with you. But I do have to say, you're definitely not the best generation. That belongs to Gen X, and that's just all there is to it. We all know Gen X is the better generation, but we'll save that for the next time we meet offline. All right, we're going to go to Congressman Casar from the great state of Texas, who also just managed to get a baby asleep right before hopping on this. So I think he's a superhero. Congressman?
Thank you, Tiffany. And if y'all start hearing crying in the background, you'll know that Tiffany was telling the truth, but not the full truth. I can't necessarily keep him asleep this whole time. But thank you, Tiffany and Chris and Liz and Peggy and everybody joining, because we need everybody to be an anti-corruption champion in this moment in American history, where the president who just gave the State of the Union and told Americans how good they have it has made $4 billion in personal profit off of being president here just in the last year. It is staggering and it's wrong. On top of that, he's handing out tax breaks and pardons and special tariff exemptions to people who put money in his pocket or pay for his golden ballroom. Billionaires are spending hundreds of millions of dollars on our elections. And in exchange, the Republicans in charge are giving them billions of dollars in tax breaks, essentially as a kickback. And so our housing and our healthcare and our grocery bills and our utility bills are all more expensive as a result of this unchecked corruption. So understandably, folks on this call, people all over the country have lost their faith in government. And the question is, what are we going to do about it? And what I love about End Citizens United and about the leaders on this call is that part of our work is to turn the Democratic Party very clearly into the pro-worker and anti-corruption party, so that people have a choice of a party to vote for that is going to root out what it is they see, no matter who is doing it. That's why we need to be clear. We're going to get big money out of elections by ending Citizens United. And on our path in that direction, we should also ban super PACs, which I believe even with some of the court decisions we've been dealing with, we can still pursue banning super PACs, banning members of Congress from owning and trading stocks, and rooting out corruption in all of its forms. I also want to mention on this here on the top that there is a very concerted attempt to intimidate Democrats out of this strategy. Just look at the election that we had in Ohio here, the Senate election, where the cryptocurrency industry decided to spend ungodly sums of money to get rid of Sherrod Brown simply because he wanted guardrails for workers and consumers. That is an attempt. That isn't just about Ohio. That isn't just about cryptocurrency. That's an attempt to try to push the Democratic Party to say, let's play it safe. Let's not have that happen to me. Maybe we should coddle up to those interests. And what we need everybody on this call participating in is to push the Democratic Party to do the right thing, and to say, in response to that, we should go even harder against those special interests, reject their money, and earn back the trust of millions of voters in the Democratic Party to have a real alternative. And I think that is the real work that it is that we have to do. We have to call out the incredible, disgusting, historic corruption of the Trump administration and his enablers, but then also make sure that we clean house on the Democratic side and commit to a real pro-worker and anti-corruption agenda. And looking forward to talking with you guys about it.
Thank you, Congressman. And the baby stayed asleep that whole time. You did great. You did great. And last but certainly not least, we have Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan from the great state of Minnesota. And as I said earlier at the top, we are so thrilled. Just this morning, we rolled out our endorsement of Peggy's campaign for U.S. Senate, and she is going to be such a fighter in the Senate. So, Lieutenant Governor, I turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Tiffany. And I'm really honored and humbled to be part of this conversation with such incredible champions here tonight. My name is Peggy Flanagan. My Ojibwe name is Gigi Wewodomokwe, which means speaks in a loud and clear voice woman. My family, as the Wolf Clan, and the role of our clan is to ensure that we're never leaving anyone behind. And so I'm trying to do that through my campaign for U.S. Senate, but also know that this is work that ECU does every single day. So I am just so thrilled with this endorsement and to be on this team. This organization has been on the front lines of pushing back against corruption and our politics. And certainly these leaders, also so honored and humbled that Senator Elizabeth Warren has also endorsed my campaign. My heart, this champion of policies that are good for folks, working people. I adore her. And Chris and Greg, I'm so appreciative of the work that you do in Congress every single day. And here's what I know. It was one of the easiest decisions that I made was to not take a dime of corporate PAC money in my campaign, because I know the corporations, billionaires are doing quite well and have great representation in Washington, D.C. It is everybody else who needs it. And so that's what this is all about. It is showing and demonstrating that we can have a grassroots, people-powered campaign and we can win. And I think one of the best ways that we end Citizens United is demonstrating that these can be winning campaigns with support from folks who are just trying to afford the lives they want to live. And so that is what this is all about. And I know that in this moment, when it feels like democracy is certainly on the line, and the really interesting speech, and I use that in the most Minnesotan way possible, that we heard last night, my hope is that folks are also looking to Minnesota in this moment for some hope, and to know that we are powerful. We are not powerless. And when we join our voices together, when we organize, when we literally march through the streets in -15 below weather to stand up for our neighbors and to stand up for justice, that there are so many more of us. And so I'm just excited for this conversation, excited to be endorsed by ECU, and excited to get in the fight.
All right, well, let's go win this. That's what I say. And then pass all the good policies. And we are getting a ton of amazing questions coming in, and we are going to get to as many of them as possible. But I'm going to start with a question for all the panelists, which it kind of builds off what you were just talking about, Lieutenant Governor, which is it has been less than 24 hours since the State of the Union. And I think, I don't know about you all, but I'm still recovering from whatever that was. 90 minutes of diatribe and lies. So let's start with a little group therapy. What stood out to you, either in a good way or a bad way, from that?
Oh, come on. It's Donald Trump thinks he can make an issue of corruption. It was a moment for the years, right? So he rightly called out the stock trading. I'm delighted. We've had this bill for a long time, right? Right, Chris? Right, Greg? We're ready to go on banning stock trading. But with Trump, the corruption is so deep now in Washington. He is so awash in it that it really was one of these bizarre moments when you want to say, does he not understand, or is he just shining us on? Does he think we will fall for this? But I really do want to say, I will use that. I push it right back in the face of every Republican who's like, oh, sure, I have money, but don't want to sign on to a bill. I want to use what he said to punch forward as hard as we can and use that as another thing that Donald Trump, he's broken his promise on this. Let's use it to try to get the ban on stock trading across the finish line. I mean, what do you all think? Chris, Greg, you're right in the heart of this over on the other side of the Capitol.
Yeah, what struck me too, and by the way, totally agree. If he's going to say he's going to support congressional stock trading ban, like let's do it. Let's pass
That's
the
right.
thing. It's easy. It should be easy. One of the things that stuck with me last night was, he's almost begging the American people to call him on his BS about cost of living and to not believe your lying eyes for what you are experiencing and to ignore the direct link between corruption and why we're in a cost of living emergency. And the American people are too smart for that. And again, it shows a lack of respect for the people who send us to these jobs to tell them that they don't know what they're experiencing is real. It really jumped out at me throughout the night that he's begging people to try to lie about what they are experiencing, and it's not going to land because again, people are smart and they know what they're seeing in their household budgets.
Right.
Well, and Congressman, to follow up on that, I mean, I'm guessing that you talk to a lot of union households in your district that are really skeptical about politics and who maybe don't always understand the connection between the corruption and the money in politics and their actual pocketbook. So how do you explain it to them? How do you help connect those dots?
Yeah, and like remember, right, a union household can be someone in the building trades, it can be nurses, it can be a public sector worker, right? So you're talking a wide range. But the thing I hear, and union household understands democracy on the job, understands the power of a vote. I think that link is an easy one to make because they see it, right? They see where their contributions, their support for candidates, which matters and are hard-earned dollars, can be overwhelmed when the corporations that are on the other side of them trying to organize, for instance, or getting that union in the first place or bargaining their contract can just flood in elections. My part of the world, we have competitive congressional, Senate, gubernatorial, presidential. We live through cycle after cycle of these ads, and folks see the deluge of spending that comes in from the super PACs. And so I think folks see it, they know that corruption, but maybe to Greg Casar's very good point, we've got to be able to call it out no matter where it exists, no matter which party is a part of it. And I agree with Greg there. No one should be free from this fight from corruption, no matter where you're coming from. It's why I love the no corporate PAC part of this, right? No one's immune. No political party's immune from this. We should be able to call it out wherever we see it. And I think that goes to earning credibility in those households, in those conversations, no matter where you find folks.
Well, and to build on that, Congressman Casar, I mean, you're chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, and you often talk about how corruption isn't just an ethics issue, but is also an economic one. And you are pushing every day for that caucus to take on both of these issues and to connect those together. So, what role do progressives have in taking on the corruption?
Look, these CEOs, they don't spend tons of money on elections and lobbying and gifts to lawmakers for fun. They do it because they want to make money in exchange. So, one example here is Jeff Bezos. He spent $40 million making this Melania documentary. That's $40 million in a bribe to Trump. $1 million on Trump's inauguration. God knows how much more money to this ballroom for Donald Trump. And then in exchange, suddenly Trump gets the Republicans to pass an $8 billion tax cut for Amazon. So if it wasn't so disturbing, you would call that on a pretty good return on investment. And so if we wonder, since the vast majority of Americans, whether you're progressive like us, or if you're more conservative or independent, whatever, the vast majority of Americans think that Amazon should pay more in taxes, not $8 billion less. The vast majority of people, whether you're progressive or not, think that Amazon workers and other workers like them should make more money, that small businesses should get protected. But what we actually got to do is make it so that Amazon and corporations like them can't bribe politicians anymore, so that politicians start acting more like the representatives they were elected to be rather than puppets of the big money. And so if you wonder, I mean, I'm here in Texas. I have a lot of Republican constituents and friends. They all think that it's nuts to give Amazon an $8 billion tax break. But if you wonder why things are getting more expensive and why they're getting the tax breaks and you're paying more, then we just look at the money. And we got to get rid of that funnel of money if we want to see the change we want in Congress.
Well, and a whole lot of the questions we're getting are, what can we do about it? So, Senator, here in just a second, I'm going to come to you on this as well. But first, I'm going to start with Lieutenant Governor Flanagan, which you have talked about that politicians shouldn't be allowed to profit off of their office. And so if elected, when elected, not if, when elected, what are some of the first things that you would want to change to show people that Washington can actually work for them?
Well, I think the first thing is, to be really clear that when, you don't take corporate PAC money, that it changes who you answer to. I think that people are smarter than what they are seeing, politicians do, which is, I'm going to regulate big pharma on one hand, and like on the other hand, I have a handout stretched, right, asking folks for campaign contributions. People are just smarter than that, and we have to meet folks where they are. For me, I don't have to worry about, a big corporation like Walmart or Chevron if they're going to be upset if I stand up for working families. I will be beholden to Minnesotans, and that's certainly the way that it should be. And not only does this allow me to sleep better at night, it also means that I can unapologetically fight for workers. And as someone who grew up on the margins, I am here because of public programs like SNAP, which back in the day we called food stamps. Medicaid was my healthcare. The child care assistance program allowed my mom to go back to school and, to get a better paying job. All of those investments, I now get to pay that back and pay that forward and be really clear that, I know what it's like to try to stretch $20 through the end of the month. There are not enough people who know what that's like, who are serving in political office right now. And that also means that I can fight for things like Medicare for all, making childcare more affordable, where I will be working shoulder to shoulder with my sister, Senator Warren. The cost of groceries, housing. I get to answer to Minnesotans instead of big bosses and CEOs. And so that, I think, is truly, what people are looking for, is that folks just want to afford their lives, and they want to know that you're going to be in there fighting for them because you are in relationship with them and represent them in the halls of power.
I love that. I love that. Well, when you are elected, that's exactly what we're going to get done. So, Senator Warren, I mean, you have been fighting corruption in Washington since before you were in the Senate,
Yep.
and fighting to protect people against corporations taking advantage of them, and to just help working families. And a lot of the questions we're getting are basically what can we do? What can we really do with this Supreme Court and the Citizens United ruling as it is? How do we actually make change on this? So I'm going to let you take a swing at it, and then I might follow up with some more specifics.
So let me start with step one, and that is we've got to get people elected who are committed and who have the courage to be in the fight. We're not going to get anything done without that. So this election coming up in November matters. And we can start. There are some things we can do legislatively. There's a lot it's going to be a problem. We've got a bad Supreme Court. On the other hand, a bad Supreme Court does not bar us from doing a whole lot more about PACs, about primaries, There is a lot we can do, but it all starts with electing enough of the right people. We don't have to have 100% of the people in Congress on our side, but we got to have enough to really be able to build the momentum. And I want to say off to the side, thanks to you all, we have eked more out of our position than our numbers would rightly permit us, because we've been loud, because we've been aggressive, because we've embarrassed people, because we've kept it in the press. And that's what we're going to keep doing. But you give us some more fighters. You give us the 140 who have signed up. I know some are reelects, but the new ones who are coming in, and it's going to make a huge difference. So here's what I ask for. It's two things. One is about money and one is about your voice. Call out what's wrong. Look at this race right now that's going on in Illinois, this primary, it's Democratic primary. And what's going on right now in Illinois, you may not be in Illinois, but watch. Three big money groups have swept in: APAC, crypto, and AI. They can raise unlimited money from billionaires, huge money. And they are moving into a bunch of contested, open seat congressional races. Now, we all know Congress is going to be tightly back and forth. So you've got these three groups that are moving into Democratic primaries, and they're all doing a really sneaky thing. They're not standing up and saying, hey, let me tell you why crypto's great and vote for Bill because he is going to be a friend of crypto. No, they're coming in under names like Affordable Chicago Now, Elect Chicago Women. I mean, who's opposed to that? That sounds good to me, right? The ads aren't about the issues. The ads are to either try to take somebody out or promote somebody that quietly is going to be in favor of their interests. It's manipulating behind the scenes. These are special interests that want politicians who are going to protect their interests, even when it means higher costs for everyone else. So this is why starting to get engaged right now during the primaries, this moment, not, September, October, getting engaged right now, looking for the candidates that have been endorsed by this group because they've said, I'm not taking any more PAC money. And then, as I said, do two things. Send them some money if you can, $5, $10, 50, whatever it is you can afford. Getting those small dollar donations is such a huge shot in the arm for any campaign. The money is valuable, often in the congressionals, especially. A small amount of money makes a big difference. Look, we're not going to match crypto dollar for dollar. We can't. We're not going to be able to match AI. We're not going to be able to match APAC. But what we can do is have enough money to stay competitive, enough money to be able to get the message out that I don't take corporate PAC money and those guys are, or those guys are here messing in our campaign. So helping financially really matters, but also helping with your engagement. Engagement online, your engagement in pointing out what's going on and raising your voice about it. Now is a moment when people are really asking deep questions about our democracy. We've got to tie that to corruption, making clear that so long as a handful of special interests who've got money to burn get to call the shots, then none of this is going to get any better. All they're going to do is keep driving up costs for families. People get more and more discouraged. And we have a country that works better and better for a tiny little group of billionaires at the top and nobody else. So this is the moment. The primaries are coming right now. I think now's the time to get engaged. And we need you. It's all on the line.
I couldn't agree more. And when we get the right people in office, then we know we can pass policies that actually begin to undo the harm that we're seeing created. We could actually do things like make sure we reform the Federal Elections Commission. So we had a cop on the beat again. We could end gerrymandering. We could protect access to the ballot box. We could stop coordination between super PACs and candidates. We could make sure everything was disclosed and transparent. I mean, right now we don't even know where all the money's coming from because billionaires and foreign governments and corporate interests want to hide. They want to hide because they know that their money isn't supported by the voters. And we're seeing crypto has $190 million already built up for this cycle. That is more money than the party committees have, right? They are literally trying to buy our elections. And I firmly believe the only thing more powerful than the money in our politics is the people in our politics. So the senator is exactly right. We have to get involved. We have to get involved right now. We have to stay involved. And there's so much we can do with a simple vote of Congress. We could pass congressional stock trading ban tomorrow with just a majority vote in the House and the Senate, but it is being blocked. So, all right, tons we can do. And I saw that there were some questions about Buckley v. Vallejo and McCutcheon, and I love you law folks out there. We'll follow up on that instead of getting into a big law debate on this. But congressmen's, and I tried to make that plural. I failed, but I tried. The other thing that Trump talked about last night in the State of the Union, and that we have been seeing lots of questions about and lots of people really concerned about, is this so-called SAVE Act, right? The voter suppression bill that Trump and Republicans are pushing that would make it harder to vote for tens of millions of Americans, and particularly folks like married women. Talk to us about the SAVE Act. Talk to us about where it's at in the process and what folks can do to help stop it.
Sure, I'll take a first crack, and Greg, love to hear from you too if you've got thoughts. I mean, for some background, I worked as a voting rights lawyer in my life after the military before I was in Congress. So I know a little bit about these issues. I will tell you, you look at that bill that passed the House, and I'm sure Senator Warren could speak to its likelihood of failure or success in the Senate, but passed the House, where Greg and I serve. The Republicans are trying to do a bunch of things. Right, they're erecting barriers to registering and to voting. Passports, for instance, one of the required documents that they would accept. They know barely half the country has passports. They're expensive. It's not an easy thing to get. If you say are a woman or anyone who's changed their name, and because you got married and your birth certificate doesn't match your name now, you're going to have hurdles. And thus, it's going to be harder and more people will fall off because they don't have the right documents to be able to register or to cast your vote. And just to give you a sense of why I think this is about trying to make it harder for people to vote rather than real election security. Back at the earlier version of this bill the Republicans tried to pass, I was, trying to get an amendment through and said, okay, you guys are serious about election security. Well, would you have the government issue every eligible voter a form of free ID that they could actually use if this is what you're really worried about? And of course, they wouldn't even entertain a vote on something like that, because that's not what this is about. It's not about election security. It's about making it harder for people to get on the voter rolls, to stay on the voter rolls, and ultimately cast a vote in this democracy of ours.
Congressman Casar, anything you want to add?
Chris covered it. I know that there's a bunch of questions and that we're short on time, so I don't need to add.
There is, although Senator, would you weigh in on where you think the SAVE Act is in the Senate and what folks need to do?
Well, it's clear that they don't have 50 votes, 60 votes. And so the question now is whether or not they're going to try to bust the filibuster. They're talking about doing it as a talking filibuster. And I just want everyone to stop and take a deep breath to say the Republicans, for the first time, are talking about a serious challenge to the filibuster on their side. And why? So they can enact Jim Crow 2.0, so that they can block the people from voting who might be more likely to vote Democratic. So they can block women from voting, so they can block Blacks from voting, so they can block anybody they want to block from voting. And by the way, I just want to point out here, one of the most nonpartisan groups in America has come out in opposition to this, League of Women Voters. They have stood up and said, this is not about voting. This is about purging voting rolls. That's one of the principal points of this, is to give all of the voter information to Kristi Noem, and she can go through and decide who gets to vote and who doesn't get to vote. And you don't even know about it until you show up to vote. So you don't even get a notice that you've been taken off the voting rolls in time to do something about it. This bill is genuinely appalling. And they now have 50 votes. And by the way, for any of you who'll be voting in Maine, keep in mind, Susan Collins has just been the 50th saying she is in favor. So big question's going to be, are they really going to make a run at the filibuster? And if they do, the Democrats are ready to throw down. We are ready for this fight. We will stay in this fight. They want to do a standing filibuster. Let's see who can stand up the longest. Because for us, this is the heart of what democracy is about. And that is your right to vote. Or fine, you want to have certain forms of identification. I get it. But I just want to be clear. My driver's license would not let me vote in Massachusetts. Why? Because the name on it is not the same as the name I had when I was born. I changed my name when I was 19 years old. And I kind of like to think Elizabeth Warren ought to be good enough to be able to get me a vote, but not under the Republican bill. So understand, this is a fight, and we will fight it in the Senate, and we will stop them from doing this.
And we need everyone watching to call your senators. It doesn't matter if they're Republican, Democrat, call them and make sure that they know where you stand on the SAVE Act and keep putting pressure on. Call again, write again, send emails, keep it up. All right, a couple more questions, then I cannot believe we're already getting to time. So a couple more quick questions. I know we're gonna lose you, Congressman Deluzio, in just a second. So if you have to hop before we get to closing, I completely understand. But before we go to closing, Lieutenant Governor Flanagan, you opted not to take corporate PAC money, like everyone else on this call, which is amazing. But it's really hard, and there's a lot of pressure around it in campaigns. Why was that so important to you to make that decision?
Well, thank you. And I think, it's hard because certainly the other side has gobs of money. But I also know that, making sure that real folks have a voice within our politics, that should be the most important thing. This is, I think, in this election cycle, and Elizabeth was really making it clear what's going down in Illinois. I think is similar to what will also happen in this primary in Minnesota. That folks are trying to put their thumb on the election. But I think the best antidote, to that, again, it's just demonstrating that we have the ability to run and win races when we are raising money from grassroots donors. We were at an event in community, and there was a grandma who came up to me who had a Folgers coffee can. She was selling fry bread tacos, and she pulled $5 out of the can, and she put it in my hand, and she said, "My girl, we're so proud of you." Now, that $5, she is all the way in. Right? She is all the way in. And I think that is, the work that we have to do. Does that mean I have to hustle a little bit more and work a little bit harder? Yeah, but it's good work if you can get it. And when I think about, what we've been able to do across the state, we've had over 150 events all across Minnesota, in VFWs, in coffee shops, in the Hibbing Library basement next to the Bob Dylan exhibit, right? Like there's so much that we can do when we actually meet people where they're at. And this is what this campaign is all about. So I look forward to being in a class of electeds who come in 2026 who have said no to corporate PAC money, yes to grassroots campaigns, and yes to people first politics, because I know that that's a winning politics. We just got to demonstrate it over and over and over again. That's how we end Citizens United. That is how we, ban members of Congress from trading stocks. It's how we make sure that we prevent members of Congress from being able to come back and lobby. And it's a way that we are able then to pass, stronger ethic laws, which we could really use around Washington, D.C. Right now. And we do that by electing people who share our values and remember who they truly represent. And it's the American people and not big money or big corporations.
I love it. And when I come to Minnesota, can we go get some fry bread tacos? They are like my
100%.
favorite. My favorite.
I will take you to Pugwash Grounds.
Let's go. Let's go.
You got it.
So in. Okay, we are going to start our closing. And Congressman Casar, I'm going to start with you. We obviously, Congressman Deluzio had to run to another thing. We are so lucky to have had so much of all of your times. But for each of you, I want to also make sure that you tell the people watching how they can get involved with your campaign and with the work that you're doing and how they can be a part of the effort. So, Congressman Casar, I kick it to you first.
There's so much you can do, and of course, ECU can get you their list of candidates so you can get really involved. But I know that there's a bunch of people in the chat that just like had all these questions, so I'm going to take my closing to just do like a 2.5 minute lightning round of just trying to cover some of it because I see Marilyn saying, you've seen a bunch of people's questions, and I've seen some of the ones that have been repeated. Stan asking about SCOTUS and what we can do about that. I think that many of us here are for term limits or expanding the court, putting people on the court that put the law first, not what Donald Trump wants first. So I think we have to stop being afraid of, as a Democratic Party, of taking on the Supreme Court. I see questions from folks about what it is that we can do to address the Electoral College. And somebody, I forget their name, talked about the national sort of end the Electoral College compact. So you can lobby your state legislature to be a part of what's necessary essentially to get to a popular vote, which I think would really benefit the people. Multiple people I see, Terry and I think Barry and other folks asking about what Democrats will do if we win the majority. I think right at the front of our agenda should be, for example, if House Democrats win the majority, banning stock trading, full stop, getting rid of gerrymandering, just banning it. Doesn't matter whether Republicans or Democrats are doing it. Doesn't matter that Republicans do it more, but Democrats sometimes do it to their advantage. Just ban it nationwide. But we also should be putting together a positive economic agenda for people, for the majority, and talk about, Senator Warren is the leader in the Congress on having a federal program for childcare. States have been able to do it. We should make it so that you're not paying 10, 20, 30% of your budget on childcare in this country. And then folks can also then go to work. And that's good for everybody. And so we should be having that. And there are, of course, questions here about what we can do about Trump's just completely abusive, out of control ICE. And that actually is also linked to corruption because a lot of these huge detention centers that are getting built, if you look at how much they're paying for this land and for these warehouses, it is way above the appraised cost. And you start looking at who it is that's getting that money. Believe me, that money is getting funneled right back into Republican campaign war chests to continue to tear apart immigrant families and citizens' families on our streets. And so I know all of us here are really committed to saying we're not going to give another cent to ICE until we see the kind of change we need. And part of our positive agenda should be immigration reform so that the millions of people that we've just left without status for years and have committed no crime other than trying to take care of themselves and their families like everybody else, we should give them legal status. That way, corrupt politicians can't scapegoat people, terrorize them, and now even more disgustingly find ways to make money off of it, which is part of how ECU's mission and this anti-corruption agenda is linked to everything everybody here is talking about. So that was my best attempt at covering some of y'all's questions there in the chat. Thank you guys.
That was amazing, and I'm so glad you doubled down on the Supreme Court reform because, again, with a simple majority vote of Congress, we can reform the way the Supreme Court works. We could do ethics and transparency and recusal. We could do term limits. We could do expansion. This doesn't take a constitutional amendment. We could actually change this court and make sure that it is not just captured by all the big dark money, which is what has happened right now. Congressman, can you still say how folks can like go follow you and support you if they
Yeah,
want?
you can follow me at Greg Casar. My website is casarforcongress.com, and we are working really hard at flipping the state of Texas. And so it's not just about my election, but it is about how important it is to recognize Texas is not a red state. We're an under-organized state, and everybody chipping in just a couple of bucks or volunteering or making a phone call. We could, the corrupt Republican Party of today would just disappear if we get to flipping the state of Texas.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Congressman. Lieutenant Governor Flanagan, I'm going to go to you next.
Sure. Well, I just want to thank the congressman for just highlighting that through line, right through all of this is big money and corruption. For the last 12 weeks, Minnesota has really been going through it. And as ICE has been in our streets and has been violently removing people from their vehicles, arresting and detaining people, talking about quote unquote the worst of the worst, while detaining 5-year-old Liam and 10-year-old Elizabeth and 2-year-old Chloe. That could be further from the truth. So, and Renee Good and Alex Preddy, who lost their lives at the hands of federal agents. Part of the reason that I am running for the Senate is to avenge Minnesota. I don't have a different word other than that. ICE has to be ripped apart, and we have to start over. And I think we have to be very clear that Trump's mass deportation agenda continues. As a congressman just reminded us, as these warehouses are being built all across the country, right? Somebody benefits from it being that way, and we have to continue to remind folks and to continue to use our voices and stand up for each other. So my hope is that again, folks look to the North Star state of Minnesota and know that there is so much that we can do in partnership together. There are more of us who believe in democracy, who believe in people-powered campaigns, who believe in humanity and standing up for our neighbors than not. So don't be discouraged. I still have hope, and you should too. And when I think about the work that we can do together in Washington, D.C., that is grounded in a lot of the things that we talked about tonight, making life more affordable for people, but that means paid family and medical leave. That means childcare. That means raising the minimum wage and indexing it to inflation. And the way that we get there is we remove these obstacles of the big corporations and the billionaires who do not want us to have those things, because right now they benefit from things being the way that they are. So let's get to work. Please join Team Peggy. You can head on over to peggyflanagan.com, follow us on the socials, help amplify our message, join our team of over 60,000 individual donors that we have, and just know that you can really make a difference, and 2026 is the year to do it. And thank you again, Tiffany and ECU, for all of your support. I'm honored to be in this fight with you, and let's go.
We are honored to be in this fight with you, and we're going to win in November. And I can't wait to come to Minnesota. So, except again, when it warms up just a little bit. Just a little bit. Senator Warren, I kick it to you now for some closing remarks.
I just want to close by saying thank you. I want to say thank you to candidates with the courage to run for the people rather than for the big money interests that will support them and nurse them through this. I want to say thank you to ECU, because without you to help organize us and pull us together on this issue, we're out there one off, and the power of coming together. And I want to say thank you to everybody who tuned into this tonight. You really do have a chance to make a difference. You got 140 candidates who have made a commitment, who've said this is an important part of what it means to me to be in public service. Adopt some of those candidates. Adopt them by sending them some money, adopt them by getting on their website, adopt them by offering them an hour or two on the phone to make phone calls. Adopt them to say, it's a hard march, but you don't march alone, and that we are together to rebuild our democracy. ECU understands that money in politics truly is going to destroy our democracy if we don't get this under control. And we have people who are willing, who are eager, who are committed, who are courageous, who will do that. Let's get them into Congress. We got a lot we can do. We just need that majority to get it done. So thank you all for being here tonight. Thank you so much, Tiffany, for doing this, and it is an honor to fight alongside you.
Well, thank you so much, Senator, and thank you, Lieutenant Governor. Thank you to the Congressman Deluzio and Congressman Casar, who both had to drop. But what an incredible lineup we had this evening. And Senator, it's just such an honor to be in this fight with you day in and day out. What we did here tonight, this matters, but here's the thing, we can't stop here, because we know all of the challenges that are coming in 2026. And so we need all of you who joined tonight to join us and to continue to help us do this. So if you'll pull out your phone right now, please text NEXT, NEXT, to 59424. That's NEXT to 59424. We are going to get you linked up with our organizing efforts, and that's all of our volunteer efforts. We have an organizing briefing with Rep. Maxwell Frost next week, and other ways that you can participate with us and continue to fight for the leaders that we need in Washington and to pass the reforms that we need. We know that change doesn't come from one moment. It comes from having moments like tonight and then continuing to build on them. So thank you for being part of this. Thank you for showing up tonight, and I look forward to seeing you all soon.